Hey everybody, welcome back. Devin the OG, the original Grognard for Lock and Load Publishing, and we are back continuing our series of gameplay videos to show off the different mechanics of our new Kickstarter game, Point Blank V for Victory, designed by Sean Drulinger, and, as you can tell from the table, it's on Tabletop Simulator now. So if you want to get a copy of this for free, just head on over to Tabletop Simulator and just do a search for Point Blank, and you can find it and download it. It comes with the rules. So you've got the entire core rules right here, and we've even provided the scenario modules with a couple scenarios in it. Let's see if I can find it. We got special rules there. And there we go. Tutorial for Bedlam Bridge. And then the second scenario is Dawn at St. Côme du Mont. So we're giving you two scenarios this time instead of the usual one that we give in our lock and load titles. So definitely wanted to show this off. Also wanted to say real quick, we have gone ahead and unlocked all the stretch goals. For those of you that may have been sitting on the fence and looking at, it's a kind of a long way to go for the stretch goals. So I just want to let everybody know that if you purchase at least one copy at the base, you're going to get everything. Everything that we advertised, all the stretch goals, we went ahead and unlocked them all. Don't forget, we've also got the really cool bust, the painted busts. You got to scroll all the way down to the bottom of the screen for that one. There's one American, one German. It's kind of a, it's a raffle. So you don't forget to go ahead and put your money in for that to get one of those busts. Those things cost like $500, so they're really cool, really detailed. So continuing our playthrough of our gameplay mechanic playthrough. What we're going to do is this time we're going to take a look at how melee works. And so I've set up a little situation here, and it's much easier for me to do this on Tabletop Simulator, and it just looks cooler. All right, so here we got, and remember when I was mentioning about the mini cards? I kind of mentioned that in the last video. So here we see the mini cards actually in action, and I kind of mentioned that the mini cards, you can put the mini cards on the unit cards, and so you can kind of see what's going on. So now you can really easily add up the numbers and see what the morale is and range and everything like that. And also a really cool way of showing off the spotted markers, so they could just go straight onto the terrain card, so you know that that sector has been spotted. Because remember, when a unit is spotting is done by sectors, not by units. So just go ahead and drop the spotted marker, and it fits on there real nice. You can still see the text of it. You see if it's a blocking or obscuring terrain. You see the terrain modifier on it. So let's just go ahead and jump into this real quick. We've got a U.S. infantry squad with the lieutenant and the M1919A4 30 caliber machine gun right there. They're under a fatigue marker. I will point out, remember, leaders are never under fatigue. It's just units and squads. And then so on the German side, and of course the Americans are in a wooden building. On the German side, we've got 3 infantry squads. They're in fatigue 1, and they're behind a stone wall, and they're one sector away from the other. Let's go ahead and take a look at the cards that we've got here. Lots of low cards. 2, 1, 1, 2. Okay, so that increases our chances of getting some high rolling numbers because they've got all these low level pip numbers there. Let's take a look at the American hand. Yeah, and somehow, legit, I shuffled this and then just shuffled the cards out. Yeah, they ended up with 4 recon cards, which, you know, under normal circumstances would be really cool, but not when you're about to get get meleeed in the face. So let's go ahead and assume it's the German turn. And they're going to go ahead and take their impulse action. So they're going to want to go ahead and do a melee. So they'll go ahead and play a melee card, because that right there is the melee card. And what you do then is you reach over and you grab this really cool end melee token, and you go ahead and you put it, and you want to put it directing towards the area that you want to melee into, kind of like how assault, or not assault, moves work. You kind of indicate to which sector you're going to go to. Now, since we're doing a melee action, that's a fatigue inducing action. So where's the button? There it is. They'll go ahead and end up being under a fatigue 2 because they're doing a melee, a move, or a fire action. And so that will be the German turn. Go ahead and put the card into just a collected discard. Then go ahead and draw another card to refill the hand. And what do they get? They got a maneuver and a flanking, or move and a flanking. So it's done with the German turn. Now let's go ahead and flip over to the American turn. Now, What are the Americans going to do? There's a lot of things the Americans can do in this situation. You can actually, if the Americans wanted to, they could actually counter melee. If they had a melee card, they could counter melee. So what would basically happen is during the next impulse, the Germans would do their melee, and then the impulse after that, if there were any survivors, the Americans would do that melee. So that's kind of a little cool mechanic that you can melee and counter melee. They could attempt to move away, but you got to remember, movement doesn't take place until the beginning of the next impulse. So these guys could be marked as move, like trying to move to this sector here, but the Germans would still be able to get in there and melee beforehand. But I think what probably is what is the most logical thing to do is they just want to go ahead and fire. So they're going to go ahead and play a fire card, and let's go ahead, as we demonstrated in the fire and move video. Determine range, determine line of sight from one sector to another sector. From this sector to this sector, or technically from this sector to this sector, it's one range unit. It's a point blank range, so and since they're adjacent, they'll get a combat bonus for that. So it's going to be range of 1. We can take a look. The 30 caliber has a range of 4 because it's got the red number with the upper script. The American squad has a range of 3 because it's got the upper script in its red circled firepower. Of course, the lieutenant doesn't have any firepower. So it's well within range. Now we got to figure out line of sight. As you remember from the last video, line of sight, you take it from the attacker's sector and draw a straight line to the no man's land. And all we've got is this obscuring terrain right here. So there is going to be one level of obscuring terrain. So now you take the defenders and trace it to its 0 area, which it's in the no man's land. So there is no blocking or obscuring terrain because they're in the no man's land. Okay, so we've got range, we've got line of sight. And we've gone ahead and we've played a fire action right here. So let's figure out our firepower. We've got 2 from the machine gun, 1 from the squad. So that's 3 so far. Then you get the 1 from the leadership bonus. So that's the 1 in the teal circle or aqua circle. Petrol green, I actually think is the exact name of it. So it's 4 so far, but they're going to be firing through an obscuring terrain, so that's going to be -1 for a grand total of 3. Now let's take a look at what the Germans have. The Germans basically either get concealment and terrain, but since they're already spotted, as marked with this spotted marker right here, they don't get the concealment bonus, but they do get the terrain bonus of 2 of the terrain they're in. And you know what? Let's take a look. We do not have a concealed card. So we can't play a concealed card to give us a bonus of +2. So the grand total is 3 firepower from the Americans to 2 for the Germans. So let's go ahead and pull a card. Let's just go ahead and pull one card and put it next to the attackers, next to the defenders. Now, I do want to point out, in the Tabletop Simulator mod, we did go ahead and we have added in our little dice-o-matics, because I know there are some people who just really like rolling dice, and so, you've got your dice here that you can roll. Also, we went ahead and added a dice bowl with a dice
charging battery.
So then that will go ahead and let you know you've got 2 different options to roll dice. But remember, every dice you roll, you need to pull 1 card from the action deck and discard it, because the action deck is the timer. All right, so we've gone ahead and we've pulled the action cards, so let's go ahead and flip them. All right, so the U.S. player had a grand total of 3 plus 3 is 6, so their total firepower was 6. The Germans had a defense of 2 plus 6 is 8. So the defender got higher than the attacker, so there is no effect. So we're going to go ahead and continue on with the impulse, because these guys don't have to take a morale test because they rolled higher. Now, also, don't forget, since this unit did a fire action, it gets hit with a fatigue 2 marker as well, because it did a move or assault. It did a fatigue inducing action. So we go ahead and take the cards and just go ahead and put them in our discard pile right there. And the Americans will go ahead and draw a new card to bring back up to 5. And they got a unit action card. Okay. So now it's the start of the German impulse, and just like movement, melee takes place during the quote-unquote administration step of the beginning of the initiative. At the very beginning of the turn, just like movement is done. This is actually all done before the Germans' actions. So, and in fact, I think this takes place before movement. You know what? Let's take a look. I know we've got a player aid card somewhere. that's got the sequence of play on it. Is it right here? Oh, it is right here. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. So you're looking at the upkeep phase, or the impulse phase. Yeah, upkeep phase. Resolve melee and overrun attacks. All right, so that takes place before movement, which is technically under resolve terrain placement. So we go ahead and you'll do melee as the very first thing. And so now we're already going to be, we know we're going into there. Now we just need to figure out how many dice we get to throw. Now, if you're familiar with Lock and Load Tactical, you know normally how the melee is. It's an odds ratio. In Point Blank, melee is done a little bit differently. You get a set number of dice, and then you roll them. And if you roll a 4 or better, you inflict a hit on the enemy, and then you determine how many hits there are, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But so we need to figure out how many dice each side are going to toss. And what we've got right here is our handy little our melee overrun modifiers right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and check this out. Well, let's figure out the base first. So the base is basically just your firepower. So you've got 1 from the squad and 2 from the 30 caliber machine gun. So the Americans have a base of 3 dice that they're going to throw. The German infantry have 1, 2, 3. There's 3 of them stacked there, and they've got a firepower of 1 each. So the Germans are going to have a base of 3 dice that they're going to roll as well. So now we got to figure out what all of our modifiers are. Well, here's the melee overrun modifiers table. Is the defender defending and degrading to terrain? Nope, that's a wood building. Defender in blocking terrain. The defender is in blocking terrain, so they'll get an additional 2d6, so they have 5d6 so far. Okay, is any of the defending units shaken? Okay, for the attacker, no defenders are shaken. And for the defender, minus 1d6 per shaken unit. Defender total cannot go below 1. Neither side is shaken, so you don't have to worry about that. Attacking unit shaken, the defender gets a bonus. Now, had his fire attack in the last impulse inflicted any shaken effects on my units, the units would still be able to go into melee. It's just the defender would get a bonus if any of the attacking units were shaken. Good order leader modifier. The attacker has 1d6 from the leader modifier. The defender does not. Any defending units spent. Neither one of the no defending units are spent. Defending with an AFV, the defender gets +1. And for weapon teams, the attacking weapon teams may not melee. Defender may defend, but 1d6 equals firepower factor. May not use inherent firepower factor. So basically, it's 1d6. I think that's how it reads. All right, so that are all the modifiers. So we're looking at a grand total of the defender having 6 dice and the attacker having 3 dice. Now, again, you can use the dice-o-matics or the dice bowl or what have you, but I like using the cards. So let's go ahead and pull out 6 cards for the defender, because that's what they get, and then 3 dice for the attacker. Just pull these right out here. Let's go ahead and flip all of them. And anything that is a 4 or better counts as a hit. So let's take a look at the Americans. We've got a 1, a 4, a 6, a 3, a 4, and a 5. So that's going to be 4 hits that the Americans are going to inflict on the Germans. And the Germans end up with 2 hits. So they're going to inflict 2 hits. Now, how do you inflict hits? First off, hits have to be inflicted evenly across the stack. So the Germans are going to take 4 hits. Let's go ahead and take this end melee marker off. Okay, so they're going to inflict 4 hits. Well, they've only got 3 squads, so each one of them is going to have to take 1 hit right off the top, and the first hit always shakes. So let's just go ahead and put a single shaken marker on here to cover all 3 of them. They're shaken, but there's 1 hit left over. So that means another squad is going to have to take a hit. And once you're shaken, if you take a second hit, you get reduced. So let's go ahead and take him off, and let's go ahead and look into the German player's deck. Let us search. Go ahead and hit search, and let's try to find a half squad. You can always tell the half squads because they've got a red band. There we go. There's an infantry half squad. So we'll put the infantry half squad in there and flip it over. And if you notice, stats don't really change that much. They're just a half squad. I think the range changes. Yes, the range changes. Range goes from 3 to 1, and all the units are shaken. So they've taken their 4 hits. And let's go ahead and take the American cards. And just shift them off table here a little bit. And let the auto stack do its thing. Now, the American player is going to take 2 hits because the Germans inflicted 2 hits. So, well, what do? There's a leader there. Since you've got the 2 hits that you have to apply, and there's 2 units in there, well, both of them will be shaken. You cannot apply both hits. Oops, rewind time a little bit. It's been a while since I used TTS, so I'm still a little unfamiliar with it when I jump back into it. So both of them will end up shaken. And you can put a shaken marker on one or kind of on both or something like that. You can't just go ahead and decide that with the melee you want to assign both hits to the infantry squad. Has to be spread out evenly among all defenders. All right, so now what happens? Well, the defenders managed to win the melee. And you basically break it down whoever got the most hits. So the Americans got the most hits. They got the 4 hits versus the 3 that the Germans had. And let's go ahead and move these cards out of here and put them in the discard. So they will win the combat. And since the attacker failed, they will just automatically retreat back into the sector that they initiated their attack from. Had the Germans won, had gotten more hits, then the Americans would have been pushed back 1 sector behind them. And that really basically at the end of the day, these guys need a shake and counter. That's and then since okay, one other thing. Since this happens at the beginning of the administration phase for the impulse, that is done automatically. Then the Germans would still get a chance to do something. However, they've not got a lot of really good cards, so their situation is going to be a little precarious going forward. But after the melees are over, they would still be able to do another action. And that right there, folks, is the basics on how melee works. It's a little bit different than the lock and load tactical system. And again, just a reminder, this is the Tabletop Simulator mod. Go check it out. Go check out the Kickstarter. Like I said, we've unlocked all the stretch goals. There's like over 900 cards in the game. I mean, it's a great package deal. We're going to have the design your own, so you can make up your own scenarios. So go check out the link in the comment section below. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms in the comment section below. I'll talk to everybody later. See ya!